Boy, Crypto, have we got a list of things to go through today.
Don't do a plot summary, please. Just hit it and get it.
Welcome to the CodeX Cantina, where I am Una.
And I am list-free Crypto.
And today we are going to go into heavy detail on Girl by Jamaica Kincaid. If you are new here, we go into detail on the books that we read, bringing out the interpretations and themes. If you're down for literature discussions, please consider hitting that subscribe button.
And as always, we start off with publication information. This was published on June 26th, 1978 in the issue of The New Yorker, which you can still read for free. We'll put the link in the description below.
And we'll also put a link to the author herself reading. It only takes 4 minutes. It's like a 2-page... I'm going to call it a story. We're going to go with story for this one. Is that fair?
We're going to go with story. Yeah, that's sort of fair. To start off talking about Kincaid, she was actually born Elaine Porter Richardson in 1949, and she was born in Antigua, and it was a British colony still at the time. It had not gained its independence, and that's important because we're going to see a lot of themes of colonial rule and colonial influence of the British in her story here today, talking about the differences between kind of the different cultures there as well. Kincaid was born an only child, and she was an only child until she was the age of 9, and her first brother was born. And at this point, the family loses interest in her as she is a girl and she is lesser than compared to her brother, and they start ignoring her. Eventually, she is actually pulled out of school and has to help care for her little brothers and her ailing stepfather. So that kind of puts her on this path of pushing against the control or rule over her. She'll eventually move to the United States and become a maid, and don't want to go through her whole biography, but she eventually makes to becoming an editor, and then marries prominent writer, and then gets into writing and starts bringing out some of the culture that she experienced as a young child. And it's a pretty incredible story, and I think it's important to help understand what she's talking about in this piece here, Girl, today.
And I will give the trigger warning that just depending on who you are, we are going to talk about, it's very ambiguous, but there's some form of birth control and abortion that we're going to have to talk about today.
Okay.
Now, in terms of plot, we have no plot. We have basically a bunch of instructions giving a girl a to-do list with a helpful side of shame and judgment.
Yeah, I would almost say it's almost like a to-be list with a helping of shame and judgment.
You just said the word list. Was this a list to you, first of all?
No, it's very poetic. It flows almost like a song more than anything. Like if you could put this to a beat, I think that you could turn this into a beautiful song.
Okay, because I took it as a list. Like I literally thought it could either be a written list, or it could be this is stuff that has been said to the main character over time, and it's just kind of like coming up and just haunting her in her mind, but it's all like things that have been said to her.
No, I agree 100%. That's how you could take it for sure. I just felt like that the way that she writes it comes off very, very much musical.
Well, it's crafted, right? Each sentence, I feel like when I was looking at this, it was really masterful the way it leads to something. Like these aren't just things to do. These aren't saying that this is a list of to-dos or this is a list of womanhood items. Really undermines the way several of these sentences lead towards something. Like they'll lead towards the slut joke realization moments, if you will.
Yeah. I felt like when I was kind of reading this that it was almost like Martin Luther's 95 Theses. Like these are all different statements of importance to her, and she's making this house with all these different building blocks of how life is for these ladies.
Okay, here's a very subjective question, which we expect a subjective answer, right? Who wrote these instructions?
Well, I would guess that Kincaid did, but I think that
No. This is being read by a girl, right? The title is Girl, which makes me think of girl, right? Like, I'm going to tell you what to do next. Like, this is the way to get someone's attention. Who's writing to this girl?
Oh, well, I feel like it's the mother. I feel like that the mother is really creating this relationship. And I think that that's what Kincaid was going for here, is the relationship between a daughter and a mother. And the mother is saying, this is how you should live your life if you want to be successful in our culture.
Yeah, it felt very matronly to me as well. I can see it being a grandmother as well, but it definitely felt familial, and it definitely felt female to female, right? Now, I would definitely say it's not sister. I think that would be a mistake because there's that line that says your father's khakis, right? And if you say your father, then it's probably not a sister saying it, to be fair. So I think as we go through this, we'll say mother and daughter, okay, to identify these two characters, but we recognize that it could be someone else. Fair starting ground.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
All right, so here's the question. Let's assume this is either advice or a list. Some way the mother has been giving these lines to the daughter.
Yeah.
Why?
I think this is her rule book for life, to be a better person in the eyes of the upper class and to try to punch up. And I think that she's saying, I see what you're doing. I don't approve. I know society's not going to approve, and you need to live your life this way if you want to be better or do this or achieve this. And I think that her mother's coming down pretty harsh on her.
Well, let me say this. I'm not a mother. I'm not raising a daughter. I'm a man and I'm raising a son. So I can only relate in that regard, right? But yeah. I'm telling you, as a father, how I look at it sometimes. I want my son to succeed. And I think about this, about how am I making decisions with him? And so often it's, how do I make sure he doesn't screw this up the way I did, right? Here's where I messed up. I know I could have done better here. So here's how I'm going to drive my son away from that. And to me, I hear this all the time. I don't want my kids to have this life. I want them to have a better life. So you're trying to steer them away from your mistakes is a way that I hear parenthood described a lot.
And I think you can maybe think the mom is doing the same thing here for her daughter. She's telling her, here's a routine that you need to have. In the story, she talks about on Monday, you must do this. Tuesday, you must do this. You must dress like this. Girls don't wear headbands like this, or they don't wear hair pieces like this, because maybe the mom herself did those things and bad stuff happened as a result.
Well, you'll notice the mom, and it's humorous, but it's also very serious, the fact that she calls her daughter a slut 3 different times in the story.
Yeah.
So,
and yeah, she doesn't sugarcoat it. She's saying, hey, I'm seeing what you are because I think it's a reflection of herself. I think this piece says just as much about the mother as it does the daughter.
Well, we have that line, is it true that you sing Benna in Sunday school? It's a question. Is it true? Is this what you're doing? I heard this is what you're doing, right? Always eat your food in such a way that it won't turn someone else's stomach. Thinking about others. On Sundays, try to walk like a lady and not like the slut you are so bent on becoming. Bringing in Sunday, right? Okay. And they talk about Sunday school. And what's the daughter say about that? She says, but I don't sing Benna on Sundays at all, and never in Sunday school. One of the 2 lines we get from the daughter denying that she does that.
Yeah. Did you know what Benna was? I actually had to look that up.
No, I had to look it up too, but it's a calypso-like dance characterized by scandalous gossip and call and response format.
Which is 100% the opposite of hymn music that you would have on Sunday. So it's kind of cool how she puts the 2 very contrasting ideas of the British, Catholicism or Christianity with the calypso, more Antigua view. I love the contrast there.
Well, I wonder too, if we go back, the mother keeps coming back to this 3 different times. She calls her daughter a very aggressive word and accuses her of doing these scandalous things to attract men. This is how you treat a man. This is how you don't treat a man. This is how you get a man to like you. There's obviously a lot of coming of age sexuality conversations in the story. Right?
Oh yeah, and I think that she is trying to, the daughter's trying to stand up for herself and say, I'm not like that. I'm not like how you probably once were, as how I kind of felt that she's getting back at her mom.
Okay, that's the same way I took it, and I realize people can take this different ways.
Sure, of course.
So here's the controversial line, because I'm trying to tie together. Why does the mom keep coming? Why do these sentences lead towards the slut lines, right? Why are we leaning towards this scandalous behavior, local Bena dance, a local custom behavior? Why do we keep coming towards this in a piece that is meant to, what I think, drive their children away from your mistakes as a parent? And we have this line, this is how to make a good medicine for a cold. This is how to make a good medicine to throw away a child before it becomes a child. And you'll notice that she calls it good medicine.
Yeah. I think, too, you can see it that she is trying to reiterate these to help her daughter build herself what her life needs to be, of this is what a happy life is. This is what a happy household is. And she's coming back to that point again, that if you are a slut, you're not going to have these things. If you dress this way, eat these foods, sing these songs.
And I wonder, is this a view into what the mother's life was? Is that maybe what brought girls' life to be? We don't know. We'll never know. But as a parent that is trying to avoid from my son making the same mistakes, it's interesting to see this mother bring up the slutty behavior so many times. And to your point, bringing the contrarian view of we'll say Christianity, but they're talking about Sunday school. So the idea of being holy as opposed to being naturalistic, I guess. It's an interesting comparison in the story.
I think she almost starts to give a value to the daughter of, talking about how she has to keep herself clean and how she's going to be judged by her actions. And I think this all happened to the mother, that she was judged as a youngster and stuff. And I would really like to know their ages, because I'm wondering if the mom had her super young, like if the mom is... if the daughter here is just becoming a young woman, so let's assume that she's like 12 years old, what if the mom is like 24, 25? That would give us a lot of information and help us out here of giving the story some more brevity of the mom really is caring. It comes off that she's kind of harsh to the daughter, but she's just trying to make her daughter maybe understand, if you want a better life, don't do what I did.
Well, and but I'm so glad we don't have that info, right? The fact that this is a story with no plot, there's no rising action, there's no falling action. This is like a honey-do list where we're digging into these sentences that lead somewhere. I have to give Jamaica Kincaid so much credit for the format, the creativity behind this short story, whether you want to call it poetry, short story. I'll let you guys have that argument.
Yeah, but I think that she's trying to give not necessarily a rule book, but she's trying to say that if you are coming from this Caribbean lifestyle of what the expectations are for us, and she says in the story, don't throw stones at blackbirds because it might not be a blackbird at all. Don't judge people, but you are going to be judged yourself. And I think that she's trying to say, as a black woman, you have to... You yourself are going to be treated a certain way, but don't do that to others. You have to rise up and be better than that, is how I kind of took it.
Do you know what a blackbird typically represents in at least American literature?
Usually we've talked about like death, right?
Knowledge.
Something negative.
Ravens.
Oh, is it no?
Raven's death. Blackbird is knowledge.
Oh, blackbird. Okay.
But I don't know if that's what it is in Antigua, but interestingly enough.
I don't know enough about Caribbean or Antigua
culture,
proverbs, culture enough. I'm ignorant in that, unfortunately. Yeah.
No, I'm in the same boat. Please feel free to let us know down below. We admit our limitations here. Let me bring up one last question. I'm not sure if you're prepared for this, but I couldn't help but notice the advice the mother gives. This is what you need to be successful as a woman, I want to say, right? The title's called Girl, right? Feminine, gendered address. Come here. I'm going to give you some advice. Do you view this as a patriarchal or matriarchal society?
Oh, I think definitely a patriarchal society.
Okay. I went down the same route because even though we have no representation of males in this, we have their presence, right? You better iron your father's khakis this way. This is how you need to make sure you prepare his clothes, right? And this is how you need to set the table. The table for who? It's the women are serving the men. It's very subservient with all the chores that are given to her in the society as well, is kind of how I took it.
No, I 100% agree that this is a matriarchal society. I mean, even in there, you get a feel that she's saying this is how you need to interact with men, and this is how men are going to interact with you. And if you interact with them with a certain way, if you do X, Y, and Z, they're going to treat you this way. And if you do it, if you interact with them in a different way, and I think she talks about like being like, I don't know if it's a sexual relationship or just courting or bullying, or I'm not sure how it was in the story exactly. I was a little bit confused on that part, but definitely I think that she's trying to say how relationships are, and that men are going to be more dominant.
All right, let's do this last line here. But what if the baker won't let me feel the bread? You mean to say that after all, you are really going to be the kind of woman who the baker won't let near the bread?
Yeah, I feel like this was more of that domestic of how you're going to be judged, and I think it comes back to that slut shaming, and that her mom is looking down on her again. That why would you do this?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different ways you can take this line, and maybe it's looking too much into it, but you have baking a bun in the oven, a sign of pregnancy, right? You have baking, typically a feminine role, but as soon as it becomes commercial...
Yeah, but I think here in the Caribbean, it's probably going to be more seen as a homemaker role for baking bread.
For sure, but this is the male baker. He won't let you near the bread.
Yeah, I guess the question is why?
Exactly. So, interesting, very interesting story for 2 pages with not a traditional narrative of any sort, just really directions and only 2 lines from the reader, the girl, to have responded. I think this is a very interesting story that a lot of people would get fascination out of with enough contemplation and an opportunity to discuss.
Yeah, it's incredible the amount of themes here that we go over: feminism and going over domestication, going over paternal, maternal societies, going over relationships between parents and their children, specifically here a mother and a daughter, which of course is hard for us to relate to, but I love it because it gives us a window, and we've talked about that so many times. This gives us a window into what it's like to be a mother and or a daughter from both sides of that relationship. And that's invaluable to me because I will never be one of those, either of them, right?
Right. So let's move into our subjective ratings. Sometimes we have just the inspectional, how did I feel? How much fun did I have with the story? And sometimes we have the analytical of, there's a lot of tools that should be brought out from this story and it's worth studying. Crypto, what are you going to rate this?
So with more analytical, I'm going to give it a solid 8. I think there's a lot of cool things kind of go over here. Is it a list? Is not a list? Poetry, all the themes and stuff we talked about. For enjoyment, I'm going to go a little bit lower because the story did make me feel uncomfortable. So I'm going to give that a 7. So I'm going to give it a 7.5. Bam! Overall for both ratings.
Yeah, hopefully that... I've learned that it's important for us to give that trigger warning, particularly with the good medicine to throw the baby away. Some people are not going to be okay with that, and that's going to trigger a lot of maybe even just religious things. This is not, I don't think that was the intent for her to bring up that discussion, but I can definitely see how uncomfortable it can make some people based on that subject matter. I will say I had a lot of fun reading this story. I thought it was really interesting, just the creativity of it, right? A list of instructions as a story, kind of interesting. And to throw those 2 italicized authorial narrator responses in, almost kind of very Sound and the Fury-esque, like with the flipping of the tone or the character with the italics. Very interesting the way she pulled that off. It was very flawless and seamless the way that came together. I would actually reverse those 2, where for me, I think enjoyment, I was like an 8.5. I really like the story. And for analytics, I'd say maybe like a 6.5. So maybe averaging out to a 7.5 out of 10.
So we're on the same page with this.
Yeah. I think this is kind of reverse for us on how we enjoyed it. So
yeah, I guess just for me, it made me a little uncomfortable. Not necessarily so much with the abortion stuff, although that was a little bit rough. I guess it's just kind of the shaming of the daughter, and to see how a relationship could almost be toxic when you're trying to help someone. It was a little bit tough to digest. I felt really, really sorry for both.
I could tell you, as a parent, like that. You want to guide, but you realize you're like, oh my gosh, I'm becoming the overbearing parent that I didn't want to be. How did this happen? Like
I became my father.
Like how can you not see this happening? But then it just happens. I really, yep.
Yeah.
as a parent, I can tell you. So thank you so much for checking out this story. I hope you guys enjoyed it. What did you guys think of the story? Please let us know in the comments down below. If you enjoy literature discussions like this, we post videos every Monday and Thursday with a bonus video on Tuesdays when we can. If you'd like to join us on that journey, please hit that subscribe button. Una out.
Peace.